Oh, hi. Just came from downstairs where we have our accountants at the Majority Report. And they were telling me what the situation is with YouTube. And we wanted to update you as to why we still need your support on our Patreon page. And that's because some of you are seeing ads in front of our YouTube videos. And it's true. Some of them have come back. As you know, back in March now, I guess, or April, our ad placement was completely wiped out. We had basically 10% of our views were getting ads, whereas it used to be in March, in February, and January, closer to 65 to 75% of our views were getting ads. Well, some of those ads have come back, and it's true of some other channels as well, but not nearly as many as we had before. And on top of that, the type of ads that we're getting have a much lower CPM. So in other words, we're getting less ads on our videos, and the ads we are getting, we're getting less money for. And that's why we're continuing our Patreon account. We don't know if this is the new normal. And frankly, YouTube is not inclined to tell us. We're not the biggest channel. I don't even know if the biggest channels are being told as to what the new normal is, but this appears to be it. So where we got $1 3 months ago, we're now getting about 40 cents. That's better than getting a dime, but we are still needing your support. So you can head over to our Patreon channel, or maybe you're at our Patreon page rather now, but either way, give a couple of bucks a month, and that would really help us continue producing as many videos as we do on a daily basis. And we want to produce more, frankly. We were geared up to do so, and then, well, so now it's not necessarily an ad apocalypse. It's more of like an ad sort of apocalypse. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it.
No hesitation, believing through the eyes of sure adoration. Witness it now. Passion hurt. As in the fire, blink on me hurts. Chills like a house, closing its doors.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder. It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, July 18th, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 4-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Matt Stoller on the return of monopoly. Can Democrats return the party to its trust-busting roots? Also on the program today... Oh. Yes. Repeal and replace dead. After 60 votes, will repeal solo finally die now too? Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell has no more friends. Nobody likes him.
My wife likes me.
No, she doesn't.
And my family what do you know?
No, she doesn't.
You've never been involved in
And
an opium deal.
are we headed to a Republican crack-up and a debt ceiling breach come September. Meanwhile, Rex Tillerson to shutter the State Department War Crimes Office because why not? And the reason why Chris Christie's so lonely finally revealed. Because he took Obama's call when it should have gone to Trump. Meanwhile, $5 billion in student loans may be orphaned, ladies and gentlemen. Chain of title part 2. And the border wall to have holes or be made of plexiglass so you can see the other side. Fukushima nuclear waste to be dumped into the ocean. And New York prosecutors investigating loans made to Manafort. All this and more on today's program, folks. Of course, a very big day in terms of health care in this country. Last night, Senator Moran from Kansas and Lee from Utah announced they would not be voting for the repeal and replace bill to go forward. Moran, ostensibly because of process, more likely because of the welcoming he got from his constituents in Kansas at a town hall. Mike Lee, ostensibly to the right of Ted Cruz's risk pool. What do they call it? Diselective alternative? What is the, I can't remember what the term is. But to the right of Ted Cruz's death spiral proposal. And now Mitch McConnell in a hissy fit. I mean, this is, make no mistake, what we're going to show you is a hissy fit. Mitch McConnell is so pissed that, and make no mistake about it, this is a huge rejection of Mitch McConnell. Donald Trump has been on the sidelines for quite a while. There are two people who own this Republican debacle that has fallen apart from a Republican perspective. One, nobody's going to talk about. That's Mike Pence. It was his job to go and be the White House emissary and run this whole thing. Fail. Big time. And the other guy who loses, who's completely humiliated by it, is this guy, Mitch McConnell, who is going on now onto the floor and basically saying, hey, jerk-offs. Remember how you voted 60 times to repeal Obamacare? Remember how in 2015, via reconciliation, we passed a bill to repeal Obamacare? We did it in the Senate and we did it in the House. And the reason why it didn't happen is because Barack Obama vetoed it. Well, guess what? You're going to have to take one more vote. And it's going to show what kind of jerk-offs you guys are. I don't like any of you, and this is the way that I'm going to tell you.
I regret that the effort to repeal and immediately replace the failures of Obamacare will not be successful. That doesn't mean we should give up. We will now try a different way to bring the American people relief from Obamacare. I think we owe them at least that much. In the coming days, the Senate will take up and vote on a repeal of Obamacare combined with a stable 2-year transition period as we work toward patient-centered health care. A majority of the Senate voted to pass the same repeal legislation back in 2015. President Obama vetoed it then. President Trump will sign it now. I imagine many Democrats were celebrating last night. I hope they consider what they are celebrating. The American people are hurting. They need relief. And it's regretful that our Democratic colleagues decided early on that they did not want to engage with us seriously in the process to deliver that relief.
Yeah, there it is. And that is basically a note. He said, You all voted for this before. There's no reason for you not to vote for it now. And the idea, of course, is to completely repeal Obamacare, but not have it kick in for 2 years, which is, let's see if I can do the math. Oh, right after the midterm elections. But frankly, none of these senators have any reason to believe they're going to be able to come up with a solution over the next 2 years when they haven't over the past 7 months or the prior 8 years. And Republicans face only 9, I think it is, 8 or 9 Senate seats. I got to double check that they will be defending in 2018. That number is very different in 2020. And so there'll be more vulnerable Republicans going up at that time. So highly unlikely that this is repeal is going to pass. And then the Republicans are going to have to deal with the fact that they have destabilized the private insurance market enough that some areas are going to be hit hard by this. And we will talk more, probably tomorrow, about what's going to happen now, because they just wasted 7 months on a bill they thought would take 3 weeks, because they thought they were going to spend most of their time on tax reform and dealing with the debt ceiling and dealing with the budget. And they got to get all that done in the next couple of months. We're heading for another debt ceiling crisis, folks, and this time there's no one to put the brakes on. But we will talk more about that as the show progresses.
I hope nobody tells Trump about that $1 trillion coin idea. Imagine he's like on a plane to Ukraine.
That would be great.
I took the coin.
I think I know whose
personally
face
steal
is
it.
right. That one.
Let's just mint it and see what it looks like, and I'm going to put it in my pocket.
Yeah, I
My
just
face-
want to palm this a little bit.
My face is going to be on both sides of that sucker.
Folks, you know how much I love Blue Apron. I haven't eaten this well. Really, the past year and a half, I would say, has been the best home cooking that we have had in the Seder household. Picnics, potlucks, dinner parties, barbecues, good food is essential to a successful summer. And frankly, I would say all seasons. Now, it's easier than ever to create delicious summer meals with Blue Apron, because for less than $10 a meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-proportioned ingredients right to your door. I've told you guys, frankly, I was using Blue Apron well before they became a sponsor of the program. John Benjamin actually gave me a present where he bought me 2 weeks of Blue Apron.
That's the
they were
nicest
doing
thing
it.
he ever did for you?
Yeah, I think pretty darn close. Although he did give me, for my 50th birthday, an oil painting of a semi-nude of him. But we'll talk about that another time. Blue Apron's much more appetizing. It's completely flexible. You can customize your recipes each week. Nikki has now been vegetarian for 2 or 3 months. And so we get a vegetarian meal each week. You can choose a delivery option that fits your needs. And Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. We've never had a problem with that. Never. In a year and a half, never. Some of the meals available in July include seared chicken and creamy pasta salad with summer squash and sweet peppers. This drives me crazy. Creamy shrimp rolls with quick pickles and sweet potato wedges. Oh, boy. Fresh basil fettuccine pasta with sweet corn and cubanelle pepper. I'm on a diet, and just even reading this is making me... Chili butter steaks with Parmesan potatoes and spinach. Oh, boy. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/majority. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. That's blueapron.com/majority. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. I've also talked about Policy Genius. Life insurance can be confusing and time-consuming. I'm trying to think how I ended up, how I bought insurance was just because a friend of mine who I knew upstate, sort of like a cousin, the brother of my cousin-in-law, hooked me up with an insurance agent. But I'm not adult enough to do this on my own.
No way.
But I got term insurance back when Milo was born. And I got more when Saul was. Term life. I don't know. For some, maybe whole is better. I don't know. But for me, they said term is the way to go. But I went through the process of checking out PolicyGenius.com. It is the place to go to learn about life insurance, compare quotes from America's top providers, and save up to 40% on your policy. And when I saw the prices that I could have paid, and I bought it when I was younger, when it's cheaper.
Your shoes fell off.
Yeah, my shoes did fall off. Well, I took my shoes off. My socks fell off. Their simple, user-friendly website helps you work out exactly which policy is right for you. It really is easy, folks. And if you have any questions, they have a team of licensed experts waiting to talk you through it. No call waiting, no pressing ton of buttons to direct your call. You get actual customer service. And they don't just do life insurance. You can get health insurance, insure your pet, Kelly, or even protect your income, whatever you need. If you've been putting off life insurance, and folks, particularly if you have a child, don't do this. I know it takes sometimes 2 or 3 years for people to realize oh boy, but don't do that. Or you want to make sure the insurance you have is right for you. Check out PolicyGenius.com today. You can save up to 40% just by comparing policies. Larry, I know you hear me. The quotes are free. There's no sales pressure and zero hassle. PolicyGenius.com. It's insurance for the 21st century. And lastly, at my house, Mila's gone for camp, sleepaway camp. So Saul's getting all the attention.
He doesn't get all the attention otherwise?
No, he doesn't.
Oh, you guys, it's impressive. You're balancing it out.
Well, we balance it out, and we got nothing else to do. And so, and Nikki and I at this point are fighting over who gets to fall asleep on Saul's mattress.
Who usually wins?
It depends on what we've got to do, or how much TV. Yeah, how much drinking I've been doing. It's the best way to put your child to bed when you're pass out drunk.
Come on, Saul, let's car his mattress.
Just push over. Why did you get the Casper? The Casper, as I've told you many times before, it's an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. Supportive memory foam creates an award-winning sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. Here is my favorite part of this. You can try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, first of all, they deliver it to you, right? In a box, opens up nicely. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. Casper understands the importance of truly sleeping on a mattress before you commit, especially considering you're going to spend a third of your life on it, unless, of course, if you have kids, in which case you won't be sleeping nearly as much. But eventually. Free shipping and returns to U.S. and Canada. To U.S. and Canada! With over 20,000 reviews and an average of 4.8 stars, it's quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress. Get $50 toward any mattress purchase by visiting Casper.com/majority using the offer code MAJORITY. That's Casper.com/majority using the offer code MAJORITY. Terms and conditions apply. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about as we get on later with. We talk about. No, not at the moment. When we talk about healthcare, but right now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk to Matt Stoller on his piece in the New Republic, The Return of Monopoly. We'll be right back.
so drawing in the sand. Blessed be the ones who let their blessings go. Blessed be the ones who let their blessings go. Danny got a sampler and a saxophone. He made a 7-second loop and let it play while he painted pictures for 80 hours. Up come the flowers. Up come the flowers. Up come the flowers.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. On the phone, Matt Stoller, author of the...
Hey, man.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I was just going to say your piece in the New Republic, The Return of Monopoly, and asking whether or not, well, I guess I should give the entire, it's Return of Monopoly with the subtitle, with Amazon on the rise and a business tycoon in the White House, can a new generation of Democrats return the party to its trust-busting roots? And over the past couple of months, we've had a couple of people on to talk about things like antitrust and monopoly. We've spoken to Barry Lynn and to Kay Sabil Rahman, and you synthesize a lot of what these guys have been talking about. But I want to I want to just start with Amazon, which you gave some shocking stats about this Prime Sales Day, and it really just gives a sense of just how large Amazon is. And we've seen this also with Google and Facebook. We spoke to Taplin on, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. But just go over some of these numbers because they're astonishing.
Yeah, so, well, Amazon has, I think, something like 80 million people who are members of Prime, their Prime service, which is it's roughly the same number who, own a gun or go to church. I think it's more the people than voted for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. It's not combined, but each one of them. It represents, the entire kind of retail infrastructure of the country is kind of groaning at this point, and almost, and you're seeing not some bankruptcies, but you're going to see probably a lot more, and our culture is being reshaped by this giant new force in American culture, which is really only 20 years old. Every single community is being reshaped by the power that Jeff Bezos has accumulated and used to restructure our way that Americans sell goods to each other.
All right, so let me ask you this. I mean, we use an Amazon affiliate link, and I imagine there's also people out there who are saying, well, you know what? It's really, really convenient. And I mean, so what is the cost of something like this? And we could talk about Amazon, but also, more broadly speaking, when we talk about huge companies like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. So Amazon's great, right? In terms of from a consumer perspective, I buy from Amazon. My wife is a member of Amazon Prime. I get it's not. I'm not like making a criticism of people using Amazon. It's. I mean, there's a reason that people use it. The argument, so the point of talking about Amazon is to understand that there has been an accumulation of power in our culture, and to look at why that is. Amazon isn't so the way that Amazon and Jeff Bezos likes to portray what they do is as a more efficient, great customer service experience. In fact, Amazon is a political construction. It is subsidized in lots of different ways by taxpayers, and it is the result of changes in our legal environment that allow the rise of monopoly power. Now, we don't notice it as consumers because as consumers, we're in many ways the beneficiary of some of the things that Amazon does. But Amazon has now concentrated power in, say, the book market, which is its oldest market. And what you've seen there is that author incomes have dropped by about 25% or so. It's a company that loves books and hates authors. And what you don't see as a reader is the books that are never written because of this concentration of power. You don't see the books that are worse than they would otherwise be because there isn't the financing to actually do the research for those books. And if you look at the way that Amazon is taking this model of coming into the book market and implementing it across the economy in every nook and cranny that it can, what you're seeing is an incredible cram down of the ability of producers of goods, services, and content, cram down of their income and their power. And what it's going to look like in a few years if we don't do something about it is a society where everything is mediated by Amazon, and the selection of goods and services that we can get is worse and worse and worse, and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And we as workers, as producers, as authors, as creators, as artists will no longer be able to effectively function.
I mean, in some respects, in terms of how it impacts us as those things, Amazon is still very much the sort of the sowing process as opposed to the reaping process, right?
Yeah, in some markets, that's right. It mostly, well, I don't know. It's a good question. And so I guess you'd have to look at it kind of market by market. Like certainly in the book market, it is where it is. I think right. It's in the reaping process. In the in maybe like the media market, I mean, Amazon is now the second biggest producer of content. I think by that I mean TV shows and movies. It's bigger than HBO. It's bigger than ABC. It's bigger than CBS. The only one that's bigger is Netflix. So it right there, it's in the sowing aspect of it. But you could look at it market by market, how much competition there is in each of those markets. So once Amazon is able to drive competitors out of business, then it goes into the reaping part of it.
Talk about what Lina Khan refers to as the antitrust paradox.
Right. So it's actually a play on a book written by Robert Bork in 1978. And that book was the argument that antitrust is a as he called it, a policy at war with itself. So by protecting competition, by protecting more competitors, small businesses and things like that, antitrust could sometimes raise prices on consumers, or this was his argument. And that actually had an anti-competitive effect. And his argument was that this was a paradox. What Lina was saying is that this has, actually I have an email from Lina that I can just look up. But what she's saying is that antitrust, the way that this has been interpreted, the way that we have used our antitrust laws since Robert Bork, which is to understand that the purpose of antitrust laws is to protect what he argued was consumer welfare and nothing else, aka price, low prices. The effect of that has been paradoxically to concentrate power in the hands of a very small group of distributors and retailers and producers. So first, that would be the chain stores like Walmart. But now it's in the hands of Target or so on and so forth. But now that was in the 80s when they concentrated power and got rid of a whole bunch of independent retail stores. Now we're talking about further concentrating that power into the hands of just one store, which is Amazon, and is becoming both an online and an offline retailer.
So, I mean, let's talk about this change, because, you know, we've discussed it before here, but it really bears repeating. When the Chicago school, when we talk about like Milton Friedman and Bork and others, changed the way that we look at antitrust, so that antitrust was the goal of antitrust policy, the goal of anti-monopoly policy was specifically to make sure that consumers were getting lower prices, that you couldn't have like price fixing, and you couldn't have, I mean, basically that's it, right? We want consumers to have lower prices. And I think for most people who don't spend much time thinking about it, that seems like, oh yeah, what else would the goal be? Tell us what else the goal would be, could be, and then we'll start talking about what it was 100 years ago or so.
Right. So antitrust, the antitrust laws were created in around the turn of the century. So 1890 was the Sherman Act. I think 1913 or 14 was Clayton Act. 36 was Robinson-Patman. And these are laws that were political laws. They were intended to structure our markets to prevent the concentration of political power in the hands of a small group. And in the case of the Sherman Act, it was, you know, John Sherman was a Republican senator. His brother was William Tecumseh Sherman, who had fought in the Civil War. Sherman's March to the Sea. And in 1890, he passed a law to protect the republic that his brother had fought to preserve in the Civil War. And the idea was, I think he says, if we will not bear a king of our republic or something like that, but we will not bear a king or an autocrat of trade who can just set the price. And he talked about how the ability of an individual to monopolize a trade, recognized branch of commerce or industry, was a threat to working people. It was a threat to the small business people. He used 19th century language to talk about this, but this was what he was saying. And it was a political threat. And he said, if we allow this monopolization to happen, then what you will find is that nihilists and communists and autocrats will end up taking over our political system. And so this carried through for roughly until Bork, this understanding that the political, this sort of Madisonian checks and balances frame brought into the corporate world. That's what antitrust was. And it was meant to preserve a balance of power in the economy. No market could be monopolized, or there could be what were called restraints of trade. There had to be competition so that you could choose. If you were a worker, you had multiple people you could work for, so you would have leverage there. If you were a consumer, you had multiple people you could buy from. And if you were a producer, you had multiple people that you could sell to. And the point of our antitrust laws was to make sure that there was competition and that market structure didn't allow for monopolization and a whole host of predatory activities in there. What Bork did, and this was the Chicago school really from the 1950s until today, is they made the argument that in fact the antitrust laws, that was Sherman, that's a whole fake history, that Sherman didn't really care about competition and the political concentration. All he cared about was consumer prices, that the only thing that mattered was not bigness, not power. That was totally relevant. It just was a question of, could you get a good price for what you were trying to buy? And if you could, it didn't matter if there was a monopoly or a restraint of trade. That wasn't important. And so what he did was he created, it was a very smart strategy. They allied with the consumer rights movement, Ralph Nader, with some like socialists like John Kenneth Galbraith, who didn't really like antitrust laws, or Lester Thoreau, early Robert Reich. They thought that the Sherman Act was foolish, and they made the case that we really needed to have big institutions that would compete with, you know, Japanese companies and German companies and deliver efficient low prices. That there were economies of scale, and that because of these economies of scale, that small producers and small retailers were irrelevant and problematic. And what we needed to focus on, the best way to understand whether there was a good system was to look at whether consumers could get low prices. And so they designed a legal regime that would allow that. And they didn't change the laws themselves. They just changed the interpretation of the laws. And so the courts, by and large, accepted this new interpretation. And so what you saw sort of very quickly was the creation of business models, or the expansion of business models that were at their heart kind of Bork-style antitrust kind of business models. So Walmart and everyday low prices. That is the antitrust paradox in a business model. And Walmart exploded in the 1980s and 1990s when this was accepted by both parties.
All right.
And Amazon, same thing.
Okay, so let me just back up just a little bit here. So why did a guy like Galbraith and why did a guy like Nader, why were they against these type of antitrust laws?
Well, so Nader is slightly different than Galbraith. Nader didn't oppose the antitrust laws. He just opposed regulation. He believed in certain other Chicago School ideas like the theory of regulatory capture. But Galbraith was a socialist. And Galbraith didn't like antitrust because he thought that big institutions were more efficient. He had run all pricing policy during World War II, and so he thought, well, big business knows what they're I don't know if he thought they knew what they were doing, but he was like, what we really need is they have these big efficient organizations, and we just need the government to sort of tell them what to do, or to actually just buy them. And the government should just make all the steel, and the government should just make all the, basically make everything, and own most corporate assets. And he just didn't think that small businesses were particularly important. And he was into socialism. And there's a long history of that on the left, and largely comes from Thurston Veblen, who was an economist in the turn of the 20th century. And Thurston Veblen trained a whole bunch of people, and that's really was a dominant theme in the Democratic Party in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. They didn't call themselves people who believed in Thurston Veblen. They used words like public-private partnership and things like that. But it was essentially the Veblenite model of expertise-driven virtue. You could look at like Google, for example. Google. I'll just finish. Sorry, I'm kind of going off on this. But Google's theory of we're a business but don't do evil. That's a social justice theory of how to organize the world, and they even want to organize the world's information. I mean, that is a monopolistic view of the world, and yet they also say they want to don't do evil is their basic theory. So that's part of it. It's like Veblen talked of a Soviet of engineers. This was before the Soviet Union, and that sounds very much like that. You have these great guys in Silicon Valley that are these engineers that just want to do good, organize the world's information for you, and so it's a political theory, and it's just embedded in these institutions.
And we should say that it's predicated on the notion that you will have an entity that whether it's embedded in Google, do no evil. I think they've actually amended that, but I think they're just back to like, let's just more or less, whatever. But there's an entity that is going to be able to control and make just, if you will, I guess, that bigger entity, that monopoly.
Yeah, I mean, for Amazon, the thing is people want to look at generally people want to see like mustachioed villains behind all of this, but it doesn't work that way. Amazon, like Jeff Bezos and people at Amazon, they genuinely think, even when they engage in anti-competitive behavior to destroy their competitors, they genuinely think that their goal is to serve consumers. Right? They really do believe that they're doing what they're doing for beneficial reasons. And I think most people at Google and most people at a lot of these monopolies really do think that they're doing it for your own good. But it's not a fake ideology.
Right.
It's real. And these aren't insincere people.
But it's also, I mean, at its heart, it is one that is just almost exclusively looking at the transaction that makes us a consumer, as opposed to a broader sense of like, what are the implications of this to me as a citizen? And a citizen theoretically with a certain amount of freedom and a certain amount of liberty and whatnot, right? I mean, that's where Bork shifted the playing field on some levels from where Wilson was, where Louis Brandeis was. That was the fundamental shift.
Yeah, no, that's right. And it's really important, if you're going to make the argument about consumer welfare, it's really important for you to build a political structure based on elitism. So the Democratic Party, I guess since maybe the 1990s, really the Clinton administration, has been a party that is organized around the idea of technocratic expertise as virtuous, right? You saw this all the time. You see, Hillary Clinton would talk about all of her plans. You see the incredible snobbery all over the place within the liberal establishment of the Democratic Party. It's very important, if you believe in sort of the Thurston Veblen type of model, if you believe in don't do evil and we'll organize the world's information for you, you have to think that you're better, you know what is good for other people more than they do. And that's what the Chicago schoolers did believe that. And the sort of Vebelenites within the Democratic Party also believed it. The people who don't believe it are the, as you put it, people, the Brandeisians, the Woodrow Wilson types, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They were basically the heirs to the populist tradition, the Thomas Jefferson tradition in America, who think that the people should rule, not that the technocrats should work for the people. But you see the tension all over the place in the party. I mean, whenever, the Congressional Budget Office, Democrats talk about how wonderful CBO is and how it's just outrageous that the Republicans would attack CBO, this bastion of virtue. That's a form of elitism, and that does lead to a natural affinity with monopoly. So the problem that we're dealing with, when I look at monopoly, and you can see this all over the place. You can see it in your cable bill. You can see it in glasses, mattresses, the whole private equity industry, the defense industrial base, antibiotics, wherever you look, you're going to see concentration of power. But the fundamental system which concentrates power is one that says there are a small group of people who should rule over everyone else. And that ideology is very much baked into both parties right now.
I mean, isn't there? I mean, surely guys like Wilson and Brandeis must have felt that they knew better, right? I mean, I don't know. It seems to me that the issue is less about some type of will to power and more about which value you are promoting, right? I mean, where one is about citizenry and one is about a function of citizens, which is to function as a consumer.
I'm sorry. So can you repeat? Like, I'm not sure I understand your.
Well, I guess you're suggesting that the line here is between those who think they know better and those who don't. And I guess what I'm suggesting is that it seems to me the demarcation is between those who perceive the ultimate value to be our role as a consumer in society versus our role as a citizen. Because as a citizen, the values of politics become far more relevant. If we're just talking about antitrust and we're talking about public policy as a consumer, then we have a much more limited portfolio to worry about.
Right. I mean, I think that is the change that happened. Right. It's, do we think of ourselves as citizens to be served by these, these powerful entities, and we have the choice of choosing which powerful entity to be served by, or do we think of ourselves as empowered political citizens who engage in can govern ourselves? The reason I brought up elitism is because that is what it comes down to. It does come down to a basic view of what you think of a human being. And Brandeis, though he did believe in expertise, and all of the successful Democratic presidents did believe in expertise, believed very strongly that expertise was a function of learning the facts and not of actually getting a credential and then just asserting weird models. Okay. It doesn't necessarily cohere to reality. Brandeis thought, look, there are some people that are smarter than other people, but, just like there's some people that are taller than other people, but nobody is 150 feet tall, right? So if God had meant to make our institutions bigger, he would have given man a bigger brain, was his sort of theory. So you could learn, man as a creature can govern himself and can grow into remarkable capacity. It has incredibly inventive. But if you give someone too much responsibility, more than they can handle, which is what happens when you have institutions that are too big, then what you'll find is a whole series of bad political consequences, like the ones that, a lot of the ones that we're seeing today.
So
fake news would be an example.
So to just tease out this point, and then I want to go into sort of where we're seeing this revival, hopefully today. But when we contrast the notion of Galbraith's idea that you can have big monopolies as long as you have a countervailing power, the government, to regulate these monopolies on a issue by issue point. Okay, so like you're a massive monopoly, but we're going to have price controls. You're a massive monopoly, but we're going to have minimum requirements for who you hire and in what locations, perhaps. Versus what? What is the response for someone who wants to? Who doesn't buy into that way of controlling monopolies, but rather one, that believes we should prevent monopolies?
So, Galbraith had this notion of countervailing power, which his argument was that worrying about monopolies was foolish because a monopoly would inherently sort of generate an equal and opposing force. So he came up with this in the 50s when he made the case that a giant retailer called A&P, and there was a big antitrust suit against them, and A&P was basically the retailer, like it was the Walmart of the 1930s. He argued that A&P was actually just a countervailing power to the power of giant bread companies and giant food marketing companies. And that it wasn't actually that, and that the antitrust suit was foolish because A&P was operating on behalf of consumers. And he kind of expanded this by noting that, the problem isn't that you have like monopolies in, say, steel production. The problem is that, what you need to do is make sure that we have giant labor unions to face off against the giant steel companies and regulatory bureaus from the government to help plan. So big labor, big government, and big business could all kind of balance each other off. That was his notion of countervailing power. And the alternative theory is the sort of the Brandeisian one, and it goes by a number of different names, but the one I like is regulated competition. And what Brandeis thought is, look, let's have smaller institutions, lots of experiments, and the most important thing is to make sure that there is not just a sharing of profit with workers that he didn't think was particularly important, but he thought it was fine, but a sharing of responsibility, right? So that you would have, in a lot of ways, you look at the German system where you have, workers on the boards of companies or unions on the boards of companies. That's the kind of thing that Brandeis kind of liked, which was you would have competition. So you'd have lots of different, say, steel makers that were competing with each other to find better ways of making steel. But you would also have those companies would be unionized, and you would have workers who would have a role in actually making some of the management decisions and actually offering their own insight and their own responsibility, just as management would no longer have to, would be the only ones to think about innovation in a company. He thought that would be a better way, a more balanced way of having a democracy, because he thought that if you just have a bunch of big institutions, even if you have countervailing power, which I think is like kind of foolish to say that there's natural countervailing power, but even if you have that, even if you have someone who give you a grievance board and make sure that you make the minimum wage, it's not the same thing as living in a democracy. Your voice isn't really respected, and you don't really have the difficulty of sharing responsibility for the political and commercial decisions in our culture. And what Brandeis really wanted was for people to be citizens, and to be citizens in all aspects of their lives, not just in the political realm where they voted, but also at work. And he called that industrial liberty. Today, we would call it regulated competition or something like that.
And when you say you would have, expressing Brandeis's desires, you would have those things because of the inability of one player in that industry to amass so much power that they would eliminate those things, right? I mean, the idea being if you have 5 steel players or 10 steel players, that they're going to innovate and they're going to engage their workers there's going to be a better competition or more competition for their workers theoretically too, right? I mean, that's when you say
that's right. Like,
okay,
there's basically two. I mean, I'll note that there were two claims that he made. One is that if you have just one, like a small number of big institutions, they're just bad. They're less efficient. So he talked about like U.S. Steel, right? U.S. Steel was the first billion-dollar corporation. It was a merger of a whole bunch of different steel companies. And he noted that when it was merged together and formed, the U.S. steel industry was the most efficient in the world. And that within like 10 years or so, the German steel industry basically captured a lot of the global steel market share because the U.S. Steel focused on volume and stopped innovating. And the German steel makers continued to innovate. The U.S. steel industry had been incredibly innovative until it merged into basically one entity or 2 or 3 entities. So bigness is actually inefficient. I mean, he also noted that, there was a giant railroad collapse, which was called the New Haven Railroad. That was a function of the fact that you had the concentration of power over the railroads in the hands of bankers, and bankers don't do a particularly good job managing our corporate institutions. But that was sort of his big argument, which is that this stuff doesn't work. Banker management, concentration of power, monopolies are deadening forces. They reduce innovation. They're inefficient. Ultimately, your institutions break. And the second main argument was that if you have more competitors in a market, it becomes much harder for those competitors to take advantage of workers, of consumers, of other producers. So if you have a bunch of different tech companies, for example, then as an engineer you have a lot more leverage with each of them. Or if you're a steel worker, the same thing. And if you have just one steel company, and he noted this, that like U.S. Steel was basically impossible to unionize because it had so many financial resources and could cross-subsidize its. If there was a strike at one plant, it had all these other plants where it could just run them a little bit more. And you see it today, where like there was a strike against Verizon a couple of years ago, and one section of the company went on strike, their wireline workers, and so Verizon just cross-subsidized their business with their wireless division. So it makes it much, much, much harder to actually unionize a company, and much harder for any workers to have any voice in their company, and makes these companies much less efficient.
And I would add, maybe this is just because I just did an interview with Jesse Eisinger that we're going to run next week about the DOJ, and they're going after bankers. It's also much harder to get away with law breaking if you're not too big to jail. I mean, we've now adopted largely the Department of Justice has adopted this philosophy that if you got a lot of employees, there's no way that we can actually really punish you because there's too much riding on it. So, and I would also add that I think that the difference between sort of a new version of Glass-Steagall versus Dodd-Frank is a perfect example of one is the antitrust sort of model where you simply create a playing field where you don't allow this type of concentration. The other is one where you supposedly have this countervailing force in the form of a government, in the form of a statute that gets chipped away, and both the countervailing force was ultimately not there, and then obviously it got unwound, and it didn't affect the development of this industry. So who are the Democrats that we should be looking at who get it, and who are the ones who don't, and what's the tells?
So in terms of the Democrats who get it, I mean, the leader right now is Elizabeth Warren. So she's doing a number of things that are important, but she's given a number of speeches about concentration. She's really just personally interested in the problem of monopoly. She talks about it, privately, but also publicly. She's also just did something which was really quite amazing, which is she busted up. There's a hearing aid cartel, and so hearing aids are incredibly expensive, $2,000 to $5,000, for each ear, and they're basically microphones. So they shouldn't cost that much. And so she worked with some Republicans and Democrats to pass a law that says that the FDA has to create an over-the-counter hearing aid product category. It's going to probably reduce prices pretty dramatically. So she's got substance. She also did a new Glass-Steagall and a bunch of other things. So she's got substance, and she's also been talking about it. Al Franken is an important leader here. He helped block the Comcast-Time Warner merger from his Senate position. He's been talking about some of the tech platforms. And then, there's Richard Blumenthal and a couple of others. In the House, there's a caucus that's being started. The most vocal member right now is a guy named Ro Khanna, who's talked about antitrust in the context of Amazon and Whole Foods. He's doing some interesting work on the defense industrial base, looking at monopolies that are sole source contractors to the DoD, and then you've got Mark Pocan, who's going to be a part of it, and Rick Nolan. In terms of David Cicilline is actually the ranking member on the antitrust subcommittee in the House, and he's wrote a really interesting letter on Amazon Whole Foods as well. In terms of the people that are kind of on the other side of this, they're really what you have is like, it's hard to tell who is and who isn't. I mean, I think the number one pro-monopoly Democrat is actually Barack Obama. He is a very adamant about how great the tech platforms are, and he's still out there. He's hanging out with billionaires, living a billionaire lifestyle, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him try to exert his power on behalf of concentrated financial power. He did that when he was in office. I think he's going to continue doing that. Largely, the people who are for concentrated financial power don't say it. They just distract on other things. They talk about Russia. They talk about kind of important social questions. They talk about racial and gender diversity. All of these things are important things to talk about, but they're also used as a means of not talking about core political economy questions. So, Cory Booker is kind of the one who's come out and said that, he is concerned about corporate concentration, but he also is really happy that Amazon's buying Whole Foods because his Newark Whole Foods is now going to get better. So that's like that illustrates that he's kind of like on that side. But I think what the tell is, do they actually talk about about big tech platforms, or about, do they name a company? Do they name Google? Do they name Monsanto? Not do they name, not net neutrality, even though that's an anti-monopoly principle, but do they actually talk about the big companies that are dangerous and that are a threat to our democracy, that are not acceptable to talk about in the democratic apparatus? So, like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Monsanto, and so on and so forth. There's not many Democrats who do talk about them. It's not to say that they're all captured. It's just to say that it's kind of hard to tell. I would be, but I have my eye on some people, and I think we'll know more.
And I think it's something, too, that I think the bottom line is that Democratic voters have to educate themselves on this and reintroduce themselves to this concept and understand it, so that, A, they can reward those who are talking about it, and B, push back on those who are talking the other way. I mean, that's basically what's got to happen, and it's also consistent with the idea itself, right? That there's a certain amount of responsibility. You get rights and duties as citizens, and part of this is to educate yourself, and is one of the duties.
I think that's right. I mean, the other, there's so many. I mean, once you start to look at monopoly power, all of a sudden it's like the world just opens. The world just turns a different color, and you see it everywhere. So like, we talk about healthcare, like the healthcare bill collapses, right? Which is good, right? Because the Republican healthcare bill was insane. But we still spend 16 cents of every dollar on healthcare, and no one else in the world spends more than like 8 cents on the dollar. And it's not because we get better health outcomes. It's because we're paying off monopolies in the hospital industry, the Cleveland Clinic, all of these like teaching hospitals, which liberals love. They're terrible monopolists. When you talk about the pharmaceutical industry, which has just been infected with private equity, these are monopolists that happen to have a few drug factories, maybe, or research labs, maybe. You're talking about pharmacy benefit managers. You're talking about urgent care centers. Everywhere you look, you can go into a hospital room, and pretty much every plastic thing in there costs hundreds of times, or is being billed at hundreds of times what it actually costs. So the healthcare problem really is a monopoly problem. And you can look across our culture and say pretty much, not every problem that we have, but a lot of the problems that we have, from actual income inequality to regional inequality to bad outcomes in healthcare to transportation problems, you can actually pretty much link them directly to the concentration of corporate power.
Matt Stoller, the piece is The Return of Monopoly. We will link to it at majority.fm over at the New Republic. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
All right, folks. That's it.
Al Franken. Sure. They both endorse my wife, who's the greatest monopolist of all time. Only thing she doesn't want a monopoly in is contracts for hitmen so she can keep the prices low. Disgusting. But you and the sellout left and the whole Majority Report wannabe MSNBC team will keep shilling. So enjoy the conversation with Stoller. Meanwhile, not a word on the DNC lawsuit. Not a word. Just killed people in Haiti last week. Not a word.
Not a word.
Not a word. Who's Louis Brandeis?
Honestly, like, there was so many things that were mixed into that piece that I love. Like, I'm a big Brandeis fan.
Book. A great piece, rather.
I read a book in law school. I think I mentioned this. The comparing Frankfurter and Brandeis.
Yeah.
One was a parvenu and one was a pariah. And Frankfurt apparently perceived himself as a pariah. And so he did everything he could to fit in on the Supreme Court. Whereas Brandeis was a parvenu, where he always had 1 foot out of wherever he was in. So when he was at the Zionist conference meetings, he was always slightly contrarian. It felt like he didn't totally fit in there. When he was on the Supreme Court, he also felt the exact same way.
You want to hear my Brandeis impression? Well, I don't know about that. 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Maybe
monopolies actually aren't so good after all.
There you go. Kelly is back with a pup date. She has a monopoly on all the puppy updates.
Hi, I'm back, and I had a great vacation, and I'm really happy to be back, though. But my pup date is that I had like a separated area where it was my dog Edie's playpen, and today is the first day she gets to stay out of the playpen, and we'll see if it is.
So
disaster.
Kelly will not be in tomorrow. As she will be dealing with the problems.
No, I'm pretty sure she's ready. I gave her some test trials.
All right. We have now footage of Donald Trump talking about how disappointed he is and sitting next to a very stern and disappointed looking Mike Pence.
Mike Pence looked like Mother just talked to him, for sure.
Look, folks, now listen. There's two things I want to communicate here before we listen to this clip. One is something bad can follow this. At one point we know that we announced the death of the House bill. This seems to be a little bit more intractable, but who knows? The other thing I want to communicate with that first caveat delivered is that this is a devastating failure. A devastating failure for Trump and for McConnell. And we are going to be headed into the fall with, and the interesting thing about this is there's nobody who's on their heels because of this. There's the conservatives aren't going to be blamed. The so-called moderates aren't going to be blamed. It's really just the leadership. And so with the weakened leadership, that means that these disparate groups within the Republican Party are feeling their oats and are going to go full to the mat. So you're going to see a Freedom Caucus between 30 and 40 members who are going to be like, we want major concessions before you get to raise the debt ceiling. And in fact, if we bust through the debt ceiling, they're already talking about putting bondholders first. What does that mean? It means when the U.S. government, now raising the debt ceiling means, look, we've already charged it. We've just got to pay off on our credit card. And you've charged $5,000, but you only have $3,000 in the bank, let's say. So who do you pay off first? Well, maybe you pay off your rent. Maybe you pay off your electric bill. In this instance, what's facing the country is, who do we pay off first? Do we pay off those people who are expecting Social Security payments? Do we pay off people who are expecting Medicare reimbursements? Do we pay off U.S. workers who work for the government? Or do we pay those people who hold the notes, the bonds? Well, the Freedom Caucus is going to say the bondholders, as opposed to the Social Security pensioners. This could get really super ugly. But here is Donald Trump. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Here's Donald Trump lamenting the healthcare thing, and I wonder if he's going to take any responsibility for it. Is he just going to look at it like, this is something that happened over there, and I can't believe it. It must be the Hillary Clinton's fault.
She killed people.
So I'm I would say I'm disappointed in what took place. It will go on and we'll win. We're going to win on taxes. We're going to win on infrastructure and lots of other things that we're doing. We've won and are winning the war, as you know, on the border. We're very much decimating ISIS. You can see that. You see that better than anybody sees it, the soldiers that are with us today. We've had a lot of victories, but we haven't had a victory on health care. We're disappointed. I am very disappointed because, again, even as a civilian, for 7 years I've been hearing about health care. And I've been hearing about repeal and replace. And Obamacare is a total disaster. Some states had over a 200% increase, a 200% increase in their premiums. And their deductibles are through the roof. It's an absolute disaster. And I think you'll also agree that I've been saying for a long time, let Obamacare fail, and then everybody's going to have to come together and fix it. and come up with a new plan, and a plan that's really good for the people with much lower premiums, much lower cost, and much better protection.
There you go. So basically, completely befuddled, no idea what's going on. And one of the things apparently you do in business is you manage expectations. He's doing a very poor job of that, it seems to me. A very poor job.
We're going to have the biggest expectations. Expectations you can't believe.
It's a lot easier when you're promising Russian guys that they can wash their money easily through your luxury condos.
So much easier.
Who would have ever thought it would have been so
We're
much
going to
harder?
lower premiums. We're going to do everything. Everything. We're going to do it all. And but before we do that, we're going to do other things. And things are going to be done. All right.
People said, can someone be your daughter and your girlfriend? And can't she be hot? And can't she be an advisor? Yes, it can be all things.
We should do the Trump Steaks mashup in the fun half.
Yes, we will. We're going to maintain a great tradition of playing other people's funny stuff. Going to take a quick break. The number is 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920 is the phone number. We will be right back after this brief message. Oh, don't forget, you can become a member and support this program by going to jointhemajorityreport.com, jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY, get 10% off. And if you go to majorityreportkickback.com, and frankly, look, individual action, always good, but the bottom line is, I think this is clear, you need to have government action to stop monopolies. With that said, at majorityreportkickback.com, you will have the choice of using our Amazon link to buy your stuff or our jet.com link. Jet.com, of course, owned by Walmart, but I think this proves the point. Nevertheless, both those links are there. You will notice no difference when you purchase from these entities. We will get a kickback and continue to use the resources from that kickback to promote antitrust, anti-monopoly policies. We'll be right back after this.
All the time, she said no, 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 like to speak my mind. She said no, 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 and I know her time's not free. She didn't waste none on me. Situation sad. She said no, 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 things are looking bad. She said no, 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 and if it was up to me, I'd tell her a thing or three. Every time I see her look my way, I don't know, girl, what to say. Situation sad. She said no, 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 things are looking bad. She said no, 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 and if it was up to me, I'd tell her a thing or three. No, 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 no.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Folks, as we talk a little bit about, and we'll get into it, I may get into it even more tomorrow. I'm not sure. We'll play that interview from Eisinger either tomorrow or next week. But this was really key. We were talking about this yesterday. We didn't have the audio. But here is a clip of Ron Johnson. And the health care bill really started to unravel, it seems to me, after it was reported in the Washington Post the other day that moderates, I hate to use that word because they're not really moderates.
Let's call them conservatives versus reactionaries, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that the milquetoast conservatives, the hiding conservatives, the pretenders, were told by Mitch McConnell, look, don't worry about the Medicaid cuts because they can come back. A future Congress, essentially, can reinstate the Medicaid cuts. And Ron Johnson, who had been sort of fishing around for a reason, I think, to vote against this, but couldn't quite find one. Right? He's trying to make it about process for a long time, and that didn't really catch on. All these people are looking for fig leaves, and this became his fig leaf. The best situation to be in if you're a Republican is to vote against this bill because it's not conservative enough. Right? Ideological purity is your big fig leaf. Rand Paul is using it as a way of not destroying the exchanges in Kentucky called Kentucky Connect. Mike Lee is using it. Ted Cruz tried to use it. Ron Johnson, here is his opening.
As Senator Ron Johnson met with members of the Greater Green Bay Chamber, he explained why his stance on the revised health care bill changed.
I am concerned about Leader McConnell's comments to apparently some of my Republican colleagues. Don't worry about some of the Medicaid reforms. Those are scheduled so far in the future they'll never take effect. I got to confirm those comments, but I think that really puts this motion proceed in jeopardy.
Yeah, and he ended up confirming those comments. He made it a whole narrative, right? I've got to go confirm those comments. I've confirmed those comments. It's a progression, right? It's the what's that road that Paul took? I can't remember.
Damascus.
Yes, it's his road to Damascus. That's how I'm going to come to vote against this. I heard something in the paper, and then I went and I confirmed it, and I was hurt. And he goes on to say about McConnell, like, I feel like I can't trust this guy. Those are pretty strong words to talk about, to say about your leader publicly. This isn't the House. This is the Senate. It's not like you can't be seen in the cloakroom. You can't hide. So this is Mitch McConnell has got some real problems. And basically, like we said earlier, his announcing that you're all going to take that vote again, if you're so great. I mean, honestly, it really does sound like that. Oh, if you think you're so great, why don't you try and vote for that thing that you voted for last time? Good luck, guys.
I call your bluff. It was supposed to be the reigning achievement of my legacy to destroy health care. In a certain way, it's even more satisfying because things had incrementally improved, and then we'd make it even worse than it was to begin with. That was going to be my crowning achievement, and you fucked it up. So I'm calling you out right now to vote for what you voted for before.
Now, here is...
How does someone like that get where he is?
Here is a guy who's very happy with the way this turned out, I suspect. And that is Paul Ryan. Why? Because Paul Ryan was able to get this bill through the House, but he's getting the benefit of not actually happening, so he's not going to have to take responsibility for it. In fact, all he's doing now that he was able to get this through the House is put out videos about how nice he is. He's got a video out there talking to kids about how we have to raise the quality of the discourse. And then he's got another video out there for National Emoticon Day. I send emoticons to my kids all the time, and they're like, Dad, you're not an emoticon guy. And then I send them twice as many emoticons to prove to him. Oh, yeah. And here he is bemoaning the fact that that chump Mitch McConnell couldn't take this hot potato and put it somewhere that it was comfortable for everybody. But in fact, it's exactly where he wants it, a place where he won't have to deal with it again. This is best case scenario for Paul Ryan.
Obamacare is in the middle of a tailspin. This law is collapsing. So we've got a promise to keep, and also we need to step ahead of the problem that this law is collapsing. More and more people don't even have any choices left, or even one choice. 41% of the counties in America have no competition in health insurance. They have one health insurer left. Premiums have doubled. Options are disappearing. Many counties in America now have no health insurers left. So that is just the stark reality of the moment. And so we're hoping.
You should know that something like 90% of those counties that have no options left are Republican counties, because a Republican governor sits there. And the one governor, I believe, who has counties in his state that are not losing their health care, I think is in North Carolina, which is a state that's controlled by a Republican legislature. And, of course, he just got elected in 6 months ago.
The stark reality of the moment. And so we're hopeful that the Senate can take the pause that they need to take and move forward on this issue so we can get something done.
But are you worried that repealing?
Well, I'm worried that this law, I'm worried that Obamacare will stand and the law will continue to collapse and people will get hurt in the process.
So much passive voice in all of these statements. Donald Trump, sorry to see that happen over there. Paul Ryan, sorry to see that happen over there. Mitch McConnell's the only one who's using the active voice, and that Democrats somehow sabotage this. But they'll come back. They'll do something else horrible. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Now, what is this? This is Donald Trump. Okay, yeah. This is a compilation of Donald Trump selling healthcare-ish. Well, selling steaks. And who did this? Vic Berger? Oh, this is too funny. This is Vic Berger. If you're not following Vic Berger on Twitter, you're making a huge mistake.
My fellow Americans, when I ran for president, I made a commitment to the American people to repeal and replace Obamacare. But now that's changed. Today, through the Sharper Image, you can enjoy the world's greatest steaks in your own home with family, friends, anytime, and you're going to finally have the affordability they need and the quality they deserve at a lower price. Trump steaks are by far the best tasting, most flavorful beef you've ever had. Truly in a league of their own. It'll cost you less money by a lot, and it'll be a much better steak. You can't do better than that. Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Get something that's going to be really, really good. Trump steaks are the best. One bite, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And believe me, I understand steaks. It's my favorite food, and these are the best. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Oh, that's so good.
That's amazing.
That is so good.
That is so good.
I think Vic Berger is the best filmmaker to emerge in the last 5 years.
Everything's horrible.
Is the cow part of the actual ad? No. I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Joshua Arden. Since the election, I've heard continuously the Democratic Party has moved so far left. Where is this coming from, and what are they basing it on? We never hear the Republicans have moved so far to the right, in which real world outside D.C. understand is just obvious. Is it a function of how far removed D.C. is now from the rest of the country, or is it a talking point that is convenient for Democrats to hug the center? I don't get it. The activist base is trying to drag the party left, yes, but the party is slapping the base down at every turn by any means, as we recently saw in California. What is your all's take on this? Welcome back, Kelly. Well, one, yes, there is a fight in the party as to what the direction's going to be. I don't know if slapping down the base is what we saw in California. I think it was more complicated than that. I suggest you read David Dayen on this. But yes, this is always the case that the base is always trying to push the party to the left. And I mean, look, I think the Beltway media is, generally speaking, more anchored to the center and more afraid of the right. They don't want to be seen as being elitist by saying that the Republicans are moving to the right. Joseph Ballin, you talk a lot about cultural agreement from the right wingers, but you never talk about your own cultural agreement you have with Tim Black and Jimmy Dore. I don't have any cultural agreement about those two people. I don't know what you think Jimmy Dore spends all day talking about. I don't think about Jimmy Dore until someone brings him up or sends me a clip. But
Jimmy Dore is the greatest foreign policy thinker of our times.
But on One Aggressive Progressive, he spent like an entire show talking to Jewish Palestinian rights activists living in the West Bank in like a cave without a generator, fearing IDF retribution. But in Sam Seder's alternate universe, Jimmy's spending all day talking about Parkinson's and Seth Rich. How many times has Jimmy said Sam Seder on his show? How many times have you mentioned Jimmy Dore? I don't keep a running track. I imagine I say his name more often because he's a little bit worried about me. It's uncomfortable for him to raise this because I think he knows that he can't really debate me on these issues. So he gets nervous in raising my name. So there's, some sly references, but he should be nervous about it because I'm willing to debate Jimmy on these topics anytime for as long as he wants, in any venue, anywhere, by any medium. I'm trying to think if there's any way that I could say that. But Jimmy is not. He won't even take phone calls.
Physically uncoordinated white boy fight. World star.
Doug F. Jamal. Yesterday, I beat you and most of the media to the punch by predicting exactly what Congress will do about Obamacare, and then Trump proved me right. Let Obamacare fail. Trump promises eventual replacement for medical insurance law after the Senate bill collapses, but says it will require the current system to fall apart first.
Doug, we've always compared you to Nostradamus in this office. Always.
And Trump.
Way to go.
Epish. Do you think politically active
sort
labor
of nailed it? I think Doug does have a similarity to Trump.
Do you think politically active labor is as much of a special interest as, say, ALEC or the Heritage Foundation? No, I do not. If not, how does it differ? Well, the Heritage Foundation is not terribly representative, or ALEC is not representative of people. It's not made up of its members are espousing an ideology, but not their specific sort of own specific interests, I guess. And their funding is different. Maybe I'm being unfair, and I don't think Stoller has said it straight out, but from discussions with him, I suspect he thinks the national unions monopolize labor. I don't know. But I didn't get that from our conversation. There's a lot we can learn from those New America guys. We take the goods where we can get them. I think Ron Johnson's trying to become the majority leader. Wisconsin Republicans detest Mitch McConnell for some reason. A little inside baseball. Johnson's also convinced the Islamic State is funded by Iran. Ron's got the smoothest hand I ever shook. It was like fine silk. Also, Ron Johnson's principally sponsored by Dick Ulian, the guy who runs the company that makes all those fancy Amazon boxes and packaging. Welcome back, Kelly. I missed you. The left is kicking ass in the Democratic Party. It's a huge deal that the Senate ends miraculously stuck together on health care. That's a big deal. Durbin deserves credit, right? It is amazing.
Why Durbin?
He's the whip.
Oh, right. I guess Schumer does, too.
Drewski.
Did you watch Manchin's interview with Jank?
I did not.
It was very bizarre and but worth looking at. But I will say, even Manchin just completely held the line on that.
You guys hear Ruben is going on Pacman's show. Has he officially declined to come on Majority Report, or is he just not responding? Oh, he has. He's ignoring me now because Michael said he was stupid.
And I say this is my comments. No one on the Majority Report. I am not a member of that show. That show is for total wussbags. I think, in spite of Dave being right about the free speech crisis, not the brightest. Hashtag Mandela Day.
Judges Chambers. What if Russians came into the country one night and burglarized the homes of just Republicans? Wouldn't you say that we all have to get together as Americans and call out, condemn, and then retaliate against Russia?
No.
That's where we need to get 10% more Trump voters for this to have its own gravity. The Mueller report released to Congress is a must. Only public demand can tacitly compel DOJ to do so. AAJ Rachel Brand is in line to make that determination. She is an ascending career conservative law project soldier. She will go with the establishment. Conservative wins. I'm not sure I follow that. Beefcake Connie Reagan. Beefcaker Ronnie Reagan. Happy Mandela Day, everyone. It's a great fucking day. A Square. Sam, can't believe Trump Care went down in flames at the macro level. Majority Report has been rocking the interviews these past weeks that hopefully can help us better understand where we came from, which we may map where we need to go. Nancy's and the ones on pensions. Wow. Surely one today touches on this critical issue of citizenship versus consumerism and the redefinition of society along those terms. Also makes me think about Reaganism and Thatcherism. There's so much society, more ideas like this at the core to seek to destroy our compact. Let's go to the phones. Been holding for 86 minutes. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I do believe that if Michael Brooks can't call Dave Rubin a fucking moron, then we are all into Sharia. Also, Dave Rubin is right. After marching on Washington to have individual states, the currencies, I do like watching Jesse Waters make fun of Mexican people. Also, you should listen to Greg, Sam. You could learn a thing or two about states' rights. That's right. I'm a libertarian.
Greg's trying to help kids at Brooklyn College with wage-free labor, but they won't have an open exchange.
Greg?
Stop imitating me, but you're right.
Is this Greg?
No, this is not Greg.
Why I marched on Washington, don't you see?
This is a very funny impression that young Joshua has been honing and calling his mother. We hear it when he's on speakerphone. Ha ha!
Thanks for calling me up.
That was pretty good, Josh. I thought
Very
that was
good,
Greg
Josh.
for a moment. I was like, oh my God. You're doing great, Greg. That's a funny, and then, no.
Yeah, funny.
Greg's right. You must listen to Greg. If he wants to exploit young Romanian workers, that's his right, and I march on Washington for him to do so.
Josh.
Freedom at last.
Thank you. Thank you for the call.
Goodbye, Josh. Your mother says hi to you.
Should we play? I feel like it's not right. We shouldn't play this whole thing, but I think this is pretty funny.
Which one?
This Jones Ivor by this guy, Nick Letzko. Alex Jones rants as a folk song. People should check this out. It's for Super Deluxe. We're just going to play a little bit of it. I mean, I just like the song, but I don't think we should. It's fair for us to play the whole thing, so people should check it out. But oh, pause it. I should tell you. Wait. It is video clips of Alex Jones, and all the words are Alex Jones's. It's just that they've been reinterpreted. Folk Alex Jones.
And send the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She's same room with that creepy weirdo woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur.
Okay, that's good. Let's. I don't want to. People should check that out.
That's really
Put a
good.
link to that.
That's really
Calling from a 215 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's Mindy. How are you?
Mindy, how are you, Mindy?
The Joe Scarborough
I wanted to
Exploratory
talk-
Committee.
What? What'd you say?
The Joe Scarborough Exploratory Committee with Mindy.
You know what?
You
Stop
know what?
it. Stop it. That's not
Oh,
what-
don't swear at
Stop.
me, Mindy. I will shut you down. I'm not a cuck like Sam.
Please let me live that down. Just let that go, okay?
Let it go. Let it go.
Please let that go.
It's gone. It's gone.
Good luck,
It's gone.
Mindy.
It's gone.
Hi,
All
Kelly.
right.
I'm glad you're back.
Hi, Minnie. I'm glad
Okay,
to
the
hear.
reason why I'm calling is, hi.
Hi.
I wanted to tell you that I told you this last week. Your shows are so unbelievable. I'm like learning and enjoying them. Your guest speakers are fabulous.
Oh, well, thank
The
you.
one that you had today about the Amazon, I wanted to tell you a little story about what happened to us in Pennsylvania here.
Okay.
So, you know I have bad knees, right? So, you know I had my knee done.
Right.
So there was a guy that was a really good knee doctor. He was like the gold standard at one of the really good teaching hospitals. And he started to open up like all these like doctor's offices that became like mini surgery centers that became mini hospitals. So in Pennsylvania, if you need your hip or knee done, well, at least in my area, my region, there's basically only one place to go, and it's called the Rothman Institute. So when I had all my knee surgeries, I didn't want to go to a Rothman doctor because everybody has problems with them because they got so big that they ended up buying up all the good doctors. Like they would give them like a $2 million like buy-in. And then the really good doctors like had no motivation to be good doctors anymore. And you'd wait for an hour or 2 hours and like the door would swing open and you'd see your doctor that graduated from Harvard like eating like a sandwich while he was supposed to be,
Yeah.
during my appointment time, that kind of thing. So this is what happened here. And they would make you go through like, you would have to see a pain doctor first. And they would make you go through all this bureaucratic bullshit to get to see the doctor. And it would be like a 3-year process before you would even get to see the surgeon so you could get operated on. And I tried to find other doctors that were here, and all the other doctors were, if they weren't bought up, they weren't good, or they were really expensive, like they didn't take insurance or anything like that. So that's what happened here in Pennsylvania with the knee doctors and the hip doctors. So when you talk about monopolies, it's really scary that this is happening, that you can't literally not find a good doctor. And this is happening in all the industries, like everything. And that's all I wanted to say, that I had a really horrible, bad experience
Yeah, those.
with this.
There's consolidation everywhere. I think we're gonna talk. We're gonna interview in the next week or two about that consolidation in in the medical field, and it's a problem. It's a real problem.
It's a really big problem, and the only reason why I ended up finding a really good doctor is because my friends are orthopedic surgeons, and I wouldn't let them operate on me, but I would get the recommendations. And I ended up finding a doctor that was the doctor that the doctors use, and the only reason why he went with Rothman is because he invented this pain pack that they put like morphine or some shit in your leg and like some kind of pain pack. So he like embeds it during the operation, and he's getting it patented. And Rothman were the only people, they wanted him so bad that they're letting him get his own patent, and that's the only reason why he went with them. But it's just really... and he's got his own line, and I don't have to go through the big, like, call center, which there's, like, 5,000 women just sitting there taking calls. And, he's got his own call center. And, he's got his own number you can call. But it's just really, messed up.
Wow.
That you just, it's just really bad. Well, anyway.
All right,
So I
Mindy.
just wanted to say that.
Appreciate the call.
Can I say 2 funny things? Can I say one funny thing?
One funny thing.
2 words. 2 words that I cannot tolerate anymore. I don't know how anybody else feels about this, but I cannot stand the word collapse and the word nothing burger. I'm having problems with it.
Nothing Burger's really getting on my mind a little.
You know what Joe Scarborough is, Mindy?
Oh, God, he's a nothing burger.
Nothing burger. You called it. That's correct.
He's a nothing burger.
Very good job,
He's a
Mindy.
nothing burger. And Meek is even less than a nothing burger, okay?
Well, she's a long-time insecure psycho, and one day when things calm down, I will tell the true story of Psycho Joe and his crazy long-time girlfriend.
Bye, Mindy. Le Baltier. I was about to call in, but I got too anxious on the phone. I wanted to talk about how we won $15 in Minneapolis against strong opposition from the business community. We did it by organizing workers showing up at City Hall, building alliances with frontline workers, nurses, janitors, fast food workers. Some of this organizing energy came out of Occupy. Occupy Homes had some great success here. We were fought every step of the way by City Hall, even though they're almost all DFL, Minnesota Democrats. By the Chamber of Commerce, by the courts, state legislature, and restaurant lobby. We won by showing up over and over. On the streets, at businesses, workers testifying on what it's like to work for minimum wage in Minneapolis, a city with one of the largest concentrations of Fortune 500 companies and largest racial gaps in housing, wealth, income, and education. We did it by empowering workers to fight, and it was a beautiful thing to watch politicians falling over each other to get on board in the end. Now we're on to St. Paul. Several people are running for city council on a working people's agenda. When we fight, we win. Good for you. It's a good story. Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes, hello. Is this the fake news report with Sam Loser? Dude,
Yeah.
I got you, bro. This is Donnie J, dude.
Oh, Don Jr. Oh,
Don Jr.
You got me.
Yeah, bro, dude.
Yeah. What's
Hey,
up?
man, you keep coming at me, bro. But first of all, say it to my face, dude.
Well, all right.
Second of all, people are saying I lied about this meeting or whatever because I got the number of people wrong at the meeting. But dude, the joke's on you, fake news. I never learned numbers. Ask me how old I am right now.
How old are you?
11.
11?
I
did
don't
you
know.
say?
11. It sounds kind of numbery to me. I don't know.
How many hands? How many fingers do you have on your right hand?
Oh God, I don't know. It's like 5 or 6. I don't know.
Okay, so you do know numbers. I
But dude,
don't get it. Yeah.
This is the bottom line, okay?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as collusioning because Hillary's a bitch and my dad won. End of the story.
All right.
So, bro, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun. I haven't had this much fun since me, Eric, and Jesse Waters had a 4-way with that waitress from Applebee's.
Oh, all right. Great. I'm glad I could help. Appreciate the call.
And then you killed a lion or something?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, when you deal with the collapse of something like some piece of legislation that is really foundational to your election, right? Obamacare is a problem. Republicans have voted to repeal and replace Obamacare for 60 times. Here is David Wright from CNN quoting a top Republican. Trump was playing with a fire truck and trying on a cowboy hat as the bill was collapsing, and he had no clue. That's a quote. Here's a picture of Donald Trump walking around on the White House grounds, apparently. They had a, it's a video? Oh, they had a big fire truck there, and look at that big yellow truck. That's a big truck. Okay, guy. Looks around. Can I get into this thing? Oh, Mike Pence is with me.
This is for Made in America Day.
Oh, it's a fire truck. I think I'm president. I could probably, I'll go in this. I'm going to walk up into the truck.
You can see Sean Spicer in the mirror taking
There I
pictures.
am. I'm getting into the truck. Where's the fire? Oh, there he is. I'm steering. Where's the fire? I think it's in the Senate, sir. I think it's your health care bill that is on. There he is waving. Look at me in the fire truck. And there's Mike Pence. Look at me standing next to the guy in the fire truck. And he's going to grab that wheel. Is he going to do the... Oh, he's shutting it. He's going to shut... Oh, darn it.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I get into the fire truck.
Why is Sean Spicer out there taking pictures with
Where's
his iPhone?
I wonder what the press secretary is supposed to do besides capture beautiful moments like this.
I mean,
Where's the fire?
what is he doing?
That is what the Republican president was doing while the Republican bill was in the crapper. Meanwhile, Gorka seems to be, Seb Gorka has seemed to have come basically a full 180 from his days where he was about to being kicked out. He now seems to be the lead spokesperson for the White House.
Good evening.
Mr. President, watch me on CNN today. I'm going to make fun of Ben Rhodes. Okay, and here he is with Jake Tapper, basically talking about how this guy with his fake degree is going to, in some way, I should say I'm blocked by him on Twitter now, so I'm a little bit pissy. I'm pissy about it. So here he is talking about how the boys are back in the White House.
Policies that were born in the Beltway by people who've never worn a uniform, the people that were in the White House like Ben Rhodes, Colin Kahl, they helped
Pause
create
it.
the
I want to
fires.
remind you that Seb Gorka has worn a uniform. He has his medal that he received that he wears, his dad's medal that was given to all of the
Nazis.
fascist groups in Hungary at the time.
You know what
Excuse
we
me,
said?
sir, my father was not a communist.
You know what we said during that ceremony when we received those medals? The boys are back in town.
Here we go. Yes, here we go.
Carl, they helped create the firestorm that is the Middle East, that is ISIS today. So we are open to new ideas because the last 16 years have failed American national interests and the American taxpayer.
There were plenty of people who wore a uniform who advised President Obama and President Bush.
Not people as influential as Ben Rhodes, who had a master's degree in fictional writing. That is disastrous.
Well, I'm sure he would put his graduate degree against yours any day of the week. But Sebastian Gorka, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Anytime. I'd be glad to debate him on your show.
Yes, I'll be glad to debate him on your show because this is how I get move up in the White House. Donald Trump sees me on TV. Ask me if I hate Jews.
Here's another.
Ask me.
Do you hate Jews?
My father is not a communist.
My father was never a member of the Communist Party.
Ask me if my father was a Nazi.
Was your father a Nazi?
My father would be over 75 years old today.
Here's another diagram from Gorka's thesis.
Look at this thesis. First off, you see actor A, terrorist group. And then what I do is I signify an attack with an arrow. And then where do they attack? The terror attack victim, which I put in blue, and I will call that B. Then what happens with that terror attack victim? It points to society because of the resultant, what I call fear, creates what I call political pressure, which is encircled by green. And in that green circle, it's society, which includes the political elite, the general public, and international opinion, which is the target of the terror. This is the way terror works. The terrorist attacks the terror victim, and that creates terror everywhere.
A ripple effect. You know what
Yes.
the next step of this routine is, obviously.
That's the what I call diagram 2, mechanics of terrorism. I can go through this again in diagram 3.
Is we bring back Borat for Gorka's dissertation advisor at his fake university, being like, this is not real university, but even diagram need to make some sense before we grant
I think this
diploma
this
mill
diagram,
degrees.
as you see, I've used 3 separate colors to denote But I've put the
your
keys.
diagram
I've
makes
made
no sense.
terror victim in the biggest circle.
Under
because
no
that's
circumstances.
the most important, and it's blue.
Under no
'Cause
circumstances.
the terror victim is blue.
Is international hyphenated. And if you're
I can explain to you exactly
unclear-
why it is hyphenated.
If you're unclear on that,
like to
what do
know-
you
by
have,
the time
a
that you have
master's
read
in
what would be
writing?
Would you
required
like
to get
to
this
know
PhD,
why it's hyphenated? What does international opinion mean? Jews.
I used
when you
the
hyphenate.
hyphen before I used the multiple ellipses.
you also got the most important circle incorrect, Sam, because the green circle was bold.
Oh.
For no reason. I'm assuming it was a mistake.
Bold means black people.
I thought
Because
this was
it's
very
B.
illuminating diagram. I'm sorry you cannot understand it, people.
Calling from a 415 area code. Who's
Ben
this? Where are you
Rhodes
calling
is a
from?
lightweight.
415. 415.
Hello?
Hello.
Sam?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Oh my God! Oh my God! How you guys doing?
What's that? Who's this?
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
This is LaShonda. I'm calling from San Francisco. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
We missed you.
So
Welcome
what's
back.
Thanks.
what's on your mind?
Where's Leck?
It's about time Matt got
Oh my
left out
God, you
of
guys
one
just told
thing.
me-
Matt's great.
I just sent Matt a message, and Matt dissed me, so I don't have anything to say to Matt.
Oh, all right.
It was on Twitter. He's a dual personality,
No, I'm like-
one in real life, one on Twitter.
No, he's busy.
No, I'm
He's got a
watching on
lot of
YouTube.
he's got a lot of ladies who are. I mean, he's busy that way. If you know what I mean.
Well, anyway, a really quick question.
Yes.
I wanted to know how you guys felt about whether or not you felt that police reform will finally start to happen now that white innocent women are being murdered.
I can tell you that.
Can we deal with that for a minute?
Well, I can tell you that police reform is not going to happen. Not under this administration.
You don't think so?
No, I think all of the apparatus in which to move police forces in any direction has been purposely dismantled.
Wow.
She's
Even when
referring.
they're killing white women?
She's referring to the there was a Somali police officer who I think it was reported as like the first Somalian police officer
Right.
in Minnesota
shot
a white woman,
Exactly.
and that's a lot of people are sensitive to that sort of thing.
I mean, look.
I have long advocated against Somalis
I think
being police.
I think you may see him receive a punishment that may be outside of where we typically see it, but no, there's not going to be any policing reform. No way. No way.
You mean he'll get a guaranteed indictment and conviction, right?
I mean, I think. Look, the bottom line is that for these folks, maintaining the power of the police is certainly worth protecting one Somali police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's that's the way these things work, right? Is that it'll be a great way to show that, like, look, this is not about race for us. This is simply about police have a hard job to do, and I think that's why I would anticipate even probably he's not going to be treated any differently than if it was a white cop on an unarmed black woman. I mean, look, the bottom line is, because I think, look, if this was something that was happening on a regular basis, if this was a genuinely larger problem, then I think you'd see action on it, right? But no, I just don't think you're going to. I mean,
Okay.
We'll see. Appreciate the call.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
She was so happy to be on air, and then I just...
And you were not happiness producing.
It's crazy. I have seen screenshots I have a friend from Texas of people sharing this story like, oh, where are the liberals now? It's like, yeah, we don't think that cop should have shot that woman.
Frederick Caraglio. Oh, Frederick Caraglio Gorka. I'm an NYC public school teacher. I teach first grade, and I'm happy to be on summer break because I can listen live to right-wing Mandela say homo say what.
Homo
That
say
said,
what?
I'd love you to have some summertime education guests, specifically people who would address ways we can integrate our school system here throughout the country. On that subject, do you know any integration plans that have worked? You know, I don't know of any. I mean, I don't, to be honest with you, it's not something I'm somewhat aware of New York City and what a dismal failure it's been. I know the attempts, right? But there's a poll that shows Hillary is even less popular than Trump right now. Meanwhile, Bernie is the most popular politician. So naturally, the DNC will pivot to the left, right? From, you know what I do when I'm alone these days. I load up your picture of Mitch McConnell on my iPad, and I put on the Curb Your Enthusiasm song, and I just look at his bemused and disappointed turtle face, and everything is good. You should do it. Jay Will. Hey, Sammy, first, it looks like a repeal only is dead. Multiple outlets reporting. I'm not surprised by that. Also, recently had a local activist friend who was going to put out on an event about what precinct chairs do and how to become one in a local county Dem party. She went to see them as if they'd want to help with it, but they refused. They said she was getting to take over, called her and ornery local activists, Bernie people, and basically demanded loyalty without offering anything. They almost completely dismissed newer organizations who they'll need to win. It's very sad and won't make anyone want to work with them come midterms. I mean, look, you got to take over the party. People with power are going to maintain power. I don't care if they're Democrats or, you know, whatever it is, the PTA or the committee that runs your minor league baseball, your kid's minor league baseball team. I mean, it's all that stuff. It's always, you know, you can run into this everywhere. John McCain, politics here. I think we should, John McCain's blood clot. Politics. I think we should commend McCain's blood clot for its service to the country. It's not a hero. It's a hero because it was captured. I like blood clots that weren't captured. Comrade Knieb, PhD, just became a member after 2 years of daily listening. 2 years. Wow. Thank you. You've been a breath of fresh air and clear-minded analysis during these crazy months. Helly Jelly, who would buy steaks from a guy that eats them overcooked and with ketchup? Freak out. Hello. Dems, or more importantly, progs, are always going to lose if they don't understand monetary financing. This is why our social programs and our way of life in Europe are being slowly but surely destroyed, because the counter-argument to there is no money is not being presented. I think you're doing a disservice to your audience by not explaining it to them. We're due to have someone from MMT on. Maybe Stephanie Kelton. Who is the other guy? Walter Moser? Sam, your listeners should know that bipartisan support exists to end the 2001 authorization of military force. Congress member Barbara Lee, against it from the beginning, calls a blank check for the president. There's an egregious secession of Congress's war powers for 16 years and running, but Republican leadership is currently stonewalling, removing the language, ending the UMF passed by their own Republican-controlled Appropriations Committee. Let your Congress. This is a great time to do that, actually, because people will be willing to take that power away from Trump, even on the right. Call your congressperson, end the 2001 authorization for use of military force. Letter carrier, now that repeal and replace is behind us, I wonder if you guys would have someone on to talk about the impending revolution. Perhaps that actress from Mussolini and I, maybe? Rob Cully, I'm getting blocked by Gorka on Twitter. Me too. I think I quote tweeted you, calling him a snowflake or something. It was nearly my proudest moment, second only when I called Piers Morgan out for hacking phones and emails on live TV show called The Last Leg in UK. Clips on it, YouTube. If I remember rightly, but isn't Doug a veteran, so he gets his health care from the VA, a socialist program? Hypocrite. Allegedly. Calvin BW, love you guys, but the YouTube drama is getting a little old. Scotland's Macbeth. Sam, I just wanted to let you know I upped my membership stake from 10 to 20 a month. Thank you. Now I'm going to do another shameless plug, but for a good cause. Another organization that I also donate to is called Jobs with Justice. You mentioned listeners should call their senators. Well, if they want to make a bigger difference, Job with Justice in most states is doing phone banks of Republican senators. Even if you live in a red state, if your senator is getting calls 10 to 1 vote no, they're going to pass that message on to vulnerable purple state senators. I volunteer with Jobs with Justice here in Missouri, and that's been our strategy. It's also a great opportunity to network with like-minded activists. Their website is jwj.org. We'll put that on the blog at majority.fm. Vincent, have you read a lot of Taibbi and Ames' book, The Exile, and all the sexual assault and harassment they cop to? I have not read any of that book. It came out in 99, I think. It was new information to me. Taibbi admits to doing horrid things, and Ames admits to being a legit rapist. Jeez.
Actually, this came up in the chat, and I just read the section that it's referring to, and I'm not clear. He does not admit to being a legit rapist. That is not the way that it's said. It's I would have to look at what the actual how the book came to be, but Taibbi is not implicated in anything like rape. And Ames comments about it's not actual rape, but it's not pleasant either. I don't know. It's strange.
I'll read it. Send me the link to that. James Patrick, Anthony Dorr, Tim Black, Michael Tracy, George Charlton. The revolution has arrived. Lewis from Texas. Why are Democrats not doing at it as hard as Bernie is? I don't know what that means. Also, Farron from Ring of Fire has been doing live streams and said the only radio guy he would endorse would be Sam Seder. That is very kind of Farron. Jude, HuffPo is already saying repeal, no replace is dead. 3 R's have come out against. Informationer. The arguments about power consolidation with monopolies is a major issue. However, I'm still sympathetic to the idea that it may hurt our international competition. Even more importantly, that antitrust may hinder technological revolutions such as streamlined online sales. I'm feeling conflicted because I'm also anti-consumerism. Clearly, we're outstripping our world's capacity to support life. I keep coming back to the idea that shoring up a minimum standard of human rights is the best way to balance power. If we guarantee health care, had UBI, postal banking, and such, wouldn't this be a better approach than that game of whack-a-mole that is monopoly law enforcement? Well, I think the idea is that you don't want it to be necessarily, I think you want to have stricter controls on monopoly law enforcement. And you probably would get more of that if you did not have monopolies. I mean, if you don't think that banks and FedEx and UPS are keeping things like postal banking from happening, then I don't think you understand political power. Even if we had a resurgence in monopoly enforcement, it would be likely reversed in the next election. People need more power in the form of expansion of basic rights. But, I mean, how would you do that? That would not be, we're going to pass a constitutional amendment for that? That's not happening either. Dragon Slayer, nice job, Michael, on getting Tiffany Trump ads to play before the show. Also, hope Ronald Reagan can call in to confirm Jeffrey Lloyd's point that dreamers and Russian spies are basically the same thing. Thames Darwin, I don't know about anyone else, but I seem to remember right-wing Mandela having a preference for small government and people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. When did he devolve into literally every white kid I went to high school with in the suburbs?
When was I not? Look, I've lost a lot of friends because of this.
Calling from a 945.
Winnie's a vegan.
954 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Take her cause.
Hey, it's LibCop. How you doing?
What's happening, LibCop?
Hey, not much. Just another update and dispatch from Red State America, where I'm recently been elected to our union, our executive board.
Oh.
Which is apparently, it turns out, an exercise in stopping people from punching themselves in the face. Organizing is really hard, and it's even harder with it's basically like herding cats when it comes to people who are staunch Republicans but are also laborers. So, yeah.
And I would imagine, guys in your profession are also fairly independent-minded. Like they're not necessarily about. I mean, it seems to me there's probably like a. Well, I don't know. I mean, I would also think maybe on some level too there'd be a certain amount of solidarity.
Yes, there is the whole, we stick together sort of thing, brotherhood and all that stuff. However, when it comes down to politics, for an example, they love Trump. By and large, just about, I'd say the vast majority of everybody I'm working with, all it took was for him to give some YouTube address where he said Blue Lives Matter, which I try to explain to him. I don't know where I got this. I think it might have been from you guys, but I tried to explain that by saying Blue Lives Matter, it's like looking at someone wearing a pink ribbon and saying, well, you know what? All cancers matter.
Right.
And they still don't get it. They don't realize that, granted, there are more ambush attacks on law enforcement as compared to before. Is that due to people being more aware that there are a lot of problems with law enforcement? Perhaps. But by and large, it's a pretty safe profession compared to other professions. We are getting attacked more than we used to. However, it's not the number one problem. I think the number one problem is the attacks on labor, of which we are one. Can we do both at the same time? I think so. But by punching the people who think that we're the problem, we're not helping. It's incredibly frustrating. And any advice you have, I'd take it, but it's tough.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I could tell you is I'm just trying to think back to, like, I had a buddy who was a firefighter in New Jersey. And I just remember, I'm trying to think of, like, what made him turn on Christie. I mean, I think you really just got to show that on some level that the Republicans, that Trump, they can sloganeer, but they're not doing anything to help them and their families. And
well, conversely, the Republicans in our Senate and House have had a history of trying to take our pensions away. And this is one of the few jobs anymore. And we die generally a lot younger than most other professions because of the midnight shifts and the physicality of the job and whatnot.
Right.
So granted, we're only going to live maybe 15 years past our retirement. And they've tried to extend our working years and cut our retirement. And in my opinion, that should be our number one priority. But instead, we have these identity politics getting in the way. And that's probably the biggest problem is identity politics. You're on Team Red.
Right.
And I don't care what you say. Obama's the enemy. Hillary's the enemy. Bernie's the enemy. I think they're all idiots. They're trying to take my paycheck and my guns. And that's it. And the worst part is cops are never going to lose their guns. They're the last people that are ever going to have them confiscated, even if we did do that. So I digress.
It's amazing to me that cops are afraid of losing their guns.
Well, they should be afraid.
It's
There is a Muslim
ridiculous.
feminist agenda, and I am surprised. I know you're a great patriot that you would call this gay-themed, testosterone-less program, but you are seriously under threat. And you know what the most important and most under-talked about form of cancer is? And I know you'll be very upset by this, Rachel. Testicular cancer. No one talks about it.
Testicular.
No one does anything about it. So I say take off the pink ribbon, stop hating men, and thank a police officer. Hashtag Nelson Mandela Day.
I
love Mandela.
The only thing I would basically say is, like, I would work on the pensions. I mean, I would just work on I would just say, like, look, they can say Blue Lives Matter because that's going to get them votes. But when they get into power, all they want to do is they cut our pensions. They don't care about blue lives.
That's pretty much been my mantra.
I mean, I think that's the thing.
Cut our pay, cut our pension, cut our benefits.
Yeah,
that's what they want to do.
I think that's you keep saying it, and my whole theory on changing people is that you've got to pace yourself. Instead of hit singles, don't go for the wall every time. You're never going to convert. You're never going to change people's minds overnight. It's got to be, you got to plant seeds and let it
One
grow,
person at a time.
and let the seeds grow. The seeds of doubt grow in their minds. That's the way that I do it.
Yeah, I guess once I mention it to them, might see something in the news that makes sense. So I appreciate that. But hey, one more thing. I know you're going to hang up on me as soon as I say this, but I did sign up for the Patreon. I'm excited about the new show. Can't wait for Michael's new show. I've been spreading it on the Twitters and telling my friends about it. So
Thank you so much, man.
Click.
Click. Thank you. Have a great day.
Don't be a cock, Sam.
Don't be a
Signs
cock,
up
Rachel. Don't resent
for
the young and the new.
TMBS. Patreon trademark bullshit. How many
289.
You may want to wait till I actually get the question out before you you deliver that.
Oh.
Just to seem a little bit more relaxed about it.
289. We're at 289.
289,
Refresh.
although someone in Minneapolis right now is pressing the button. 289, you can go to patreon.com. It's so easy to remember. Trademark BS. TMBS is the Michael Brooks Show. TMBS. What's this?
This is Reince Priebus ducking behind a trash can after he ducked out of a Senate lunch.
Picture is not a video, is it?
It's just a picture, but he ducked out of a Senate lunch to take a phone call today.
This is a profile in courage as Reince Priebus looking to face his critics for, as chief of staff, another legislative debacle.
Do you have time to go over any of those stories that came out from the campaign? Just really quick.
Oh,
Like
no,
the-
not from the campaign. This is from the trip to Paris.
Oh, no, I thought there was a story about him blowing up at Manafort in the packet.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to do this tomorrow because I need time to do. We'll go over that tomorrow. Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Alex from Seattle.
Hello, Alex. What's on your mind?
Well, I got a couple questions for you and I suppose the entire audience about socialism.
Okay.
But before I ask, I need to give a little bit of background information. So I know that I and quite a bit of other people like to listen to multiple progressive outlets in podcast form and also on YouTube. But whenever I see these guys talk about socialism, you know, whether it be TYT, Jimmy Dore, you know, Kyle Kulinski, what they're really describing is social democracy,
Right.
which is a political ideology that advocates for, you know, regulated capitalism and a welfare state. And, you know, I see this phrase thrown around a lot, a mixture of socialism and capitalism. And that just doesn't exist, right? So I suppose my question for you would be, or question.
I mean, wait,
one,
does that not really exist? I mean, I don't know. Does capitalism exist?
Look, let me tell you, okay. So the way I would describe socialism, right, is an economic system that gives the worker the right to own the means of production, okay? I mean, it can't coexist with capitalism because under capitalism there exist things like private property, there's exploitation of the worker for profit, that type of thing. So you can't combine the two. So
I don't think that's true. But I mean, I don't think that there's in a socialist society that there is no private property. I don't think that's true.
You know what? It depends, okay? Because if we're going by socialism in the way that it's been, say, implemented historically, like how people, you know, maybe a state says that they're socialist. For example, the USSR. In reality, the USSR had currency, and you know, it had markets, and that's not socialism. And I know right-wingers love to say, oh, that's not real socialism argument, but it's true. It's just, that is not the ideology of socialism. So, okay, my question.
Okay.
One, would you call yourself a socialist? Two, do you think there needs to be a sort of wider conversation in the progressive left about socialism and what socialism means? And three, if you had to describe socialism in brief terms, how would you describe it? How would you say, like, what would you say it is?
Well, I don't think that I'm a socialist. Certainly not, you know, based on the way that you're defining socialism. I think that I'm probably a social democrat. I think that there are means of production that the government can own, and a couple of them off the top of my head would be sort of, at the very least, the delivery of access to health care. I think there's some things I'd like to see nationalized, maybe some banks, major banks, maybe oil refineries and some other power energy companies. Do I think there should be a conversation about it? Sure. But I also, I'm not too worried about fealty to your definition of socialism.
Can I add a wrinkle, though? The other important part of this, though, is that a lot of people, I first of all, we don't have time for it, but I don't necessarily accept your definition of socialism at all. But I think the other thing is that most people are totally illiterate on just what the actual Marxist critique of capitalism is, separate from whether you like the solutions or not. So there's the descriptive critique versus the solutions. And I think that it's very important to have a platform for people who can, as an example, explain, even when you say something like a system based on exploiting workers, that's, the story that we've grown up with, that's what profit is to us, is exploited labor that turns into profit from a Marxist perspective. So I think even just introducing that alternative way of understanding how the economy works and what profit is and what the real relationships between wages and labor are is valuable for enlarging how people think about these things. And then you can kind of take with it what you will. I'm pretty analytically Marxist, and my probably actual politics are probably social democratic.
I see. Well, I appreciate your answers. You didn't answer the last question. How would you define social? So you don't agree with my definition?
I don't think that there's no. I don't think that there's no public property. I don't know. Is communism on the spectrum of socialism, or is it fundamentally something different?
As briefly as possible. So, communism, as it's meant to be, would be a classless, stateless, moneyless society. Okay, and ideally, socialism would be a stepping stone towards that. Of course, that's not how it works out in real life. But again, could you guys just give a brief description of what you think socialism is?
Well, I think, look, I think it's about having the state own the means of production and labor owning the means of production.
I would say it's injecting some democratic process into the economy and not just politics. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's full worker control, there's no private property, but that economic decisions and corporate structures and ownership are in play too. And I think coming up with absolute definitions, unless we're trying to, none of us, I'm sure, in this room would justify China or the Soviet Union, and I praise parts of Cuba, but obviously not other parts of Cuba, just objectively. But I think the notion that you would have a democratic process in the economy and an economic design as well, and that also happens in places that are way less sexy and controversial, like in Germany and Sweden and plenty of other places.
But they're not, according to you,
Yeah,
socialist.
but that's why I don't accept the definition.
Democratic
They're total,
socialists.
That's why I don't really accept that or think the definition is particularly important, frankly.
All right, appreciate the call.
So,
maybe follow up.
I gotta say before I leave, I gotta say that's really refreshing. Thanks, guys, for those answers. I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten them in any other place. Okay, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. What happens next with that?
The range of our conversation.
Calling from a 760 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? thought there was going to be a.
Hey there, this is John from San Diego.
Hello, John. What's on your mind?
First of all, I just want to say, big fan of the show. Excited about the TMBS show.
Trademark bullshit.
I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of among the, as you call it, dumb left, this kind of obsession with authenticity and looking at it, kind of how politics have been, especially lately with the kind of failure of the Republican repeal and replace.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, how important do you think that is as a kind of political weight you might give to a potential candidate? I think it's nice to know that a politician really cares about something, but at the end of the day, they are representing their constituents. And if their constituents are putting pressure on them to make the right legislative decisions, I'm not sure I really care if in their heart of hearts they truly believe in something.
And I would even go further than that, okay? I think that authenticity is largely a bullshit quality. And maybe there are some politicians who are authentic and maybe not. But really, at the end of the day, I don't mind if there's somebody who has polish and is going to implement policies that I like as opposed to ones who don't. Now, obviously, like, there's the question of, is this guy, can I trust this person, right? And, well, yes, I care about that, but I don't know what, like, authenticity means in that respect. It's a nice feeling. It'd be nice, but, I don't know if Bernie Sanders is authentically believes that, what he does about arms manufacturers, in that instance. I don't know if he authentically believes that, or if he's like, look, of the myriad of things that I need to respond to what my constituents like, this is the one that I'm willing to give up, my position on this. And I don't care. I mean, I care insofar as the issue, but I don't care what, whether or not he's being genuinely authentic. I don't like his position on something one way or another. I don't care if it's real. I mean, the authentic thing is just like, it's childish. It's just as childish as, when they said George Bush is authentic and Al Gore is not. I don't care.
He's a guy you can have a beer with, though.
Yeah, that's authentic, man. He's so authentic. He's so authentic that it's going to be great. When you're on the receiving end of one of those bombs in Iraq, and when you're a civilian or when you're a child, and that bomb is coming down, and there's some really heartfelt sentiment behind it, it feels so much better than one that's sent to you insincerely. I mean,
mind if I toss one other question out there?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk, obviously, on TYT side of things about wanting a constitutional convention. And I saw that interview you did, I think her name was McLean.
Yeah.
And I've kind of come around to your guys' position that a constitutional convention is a pretty dangerous concept. But in light of that and avoiding that kind of potential runaway convention dynamic, is there any viable political strategy going forward to deal with something like money in politics in a long-term kind of tight basis?
I mean, it's elect people who are going to change the Supreme Court. I mean, if he gets a sixth pick, if he gets the next pick on the Supreme Court, I might have to reevaluate that. But I think it would also be, go to states and try and get states to change the way that they elect people. I also think the National Popular Vote Compact is actually something that's really viable. And that is where enough states, and and I'm sort of out of election mode now, so I can't remember. 279, is that what it is? 270 electoral votes. Enough states that comprise of 271 electoral votes will agree to award their electoral votes to the winner of all those states, the majority of voters in those states, or to the popular. I think it's actually. I'm sorry,
Isn't
to
it
the popular vote
winner?
Yeah, to the popular vote winner across the country. And right now, I think there's something like 180 electoral votes, maybe more. So that's something that could actually happen. And the value of that is things are going to become slightly more democratic. And frankly, it will also, that's a good place to start, where people start to see like the value of election reform. So appreciate the call. All right, final phone call of the day. Then I'll just do a couple of more IMs and then we'll be out of here. Calling from an 805 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, awesome. Hey, my name is John, calling from Los Angeles.
John, what is on your mind?
Yeah, I just want to make two quick points. Everybody has like a really messed up idea and sense of what socialism is. And one of the major tenets is Marx said it's in an advanced industrialized society. And we've never seen that. We've always seen it in like agrarian places like China and the USSR. And that leads to the dictatorships and the tyranny. Whereas like here in America, we have automation and enough resources and able to facilitate putting our talents and resources adequately spread around and having the welfare in place and whatnot.
This is kind of like, in some ways, the that Four Futures book, which I forget the name of him. He's really good. I had him on a couple months ago from Jacobin.
Four Futures?
The Four Futures.
Oh, right.
And that's one of the arguments that, like, and he uses, speculative fiction, but his example of communism in that book is Star Trek, in the sense that, like, all of these basic material needs have been completely taken care of by technology.
Well,
so you don't have the same.
It's a misreading of what was going on with the Federation.
Oh,
they're just
well,
members of the military. And to a certain extent, the military is a perfect example of full-on, if not communism, socialism, right? You're cradle to grave.
Guys, it's the best. I grew up on a military base. I didn't even know what healthcare costs were. We would just go there and get taken care of, and you would leave, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I like literally have no idea what this madness is. And so when all of our congressmen and our leaders who also have that awesome situation want to make everybody else have to like scrap for crumbs, it makes me sick to my stomach.
Appreciate
I'm sorry. My second point I just want to make quickly is like, I think you guys are a little too dismissive over the Russian stuff, because the Russian stuff, all of these meetings and the stuff they're lying about, I think it really, like, common sense says that there was a quid pro quo there. Because I support you guys. I put your videos up on my Facebook and all that stuff. But I don't have to have a meeting with you guys to do that, because I know that the end result will be positive for me. But if I wanted you guys to, like, let's say, give me money for these memberships or something, or if I wanted to make sure that I definitively was going to get a return on this investment, then I would want to set up all these meetings and then lie about it.
Maybe. But also, if I had been saying for weeks, like, you got to check out this dude's Facebook page, and then you also put up even more videos, right? Because that's really what was going on here. It's not like Trump, all of a sudden was a hawk when it came to the Soviet with Putin. He had been praising Putin for the whole time. I mean, now that could be
exactly, which is why the meetings would be unnecessary if they weren't going to ask for something. It's like he's already saying all the great stuff.
Well, or it could also mean
behind closed doors.
It could also mean that the meetings were just like not what we think they were. I don't know. I am not foreclosing.
I know we don't know, but I think to let Trump, nominate a Supreme Court justice and all of these federal judges, disrespect our justice system, and ban Muslims and try to take health care from 22 million people, we need to say, well, and this guy was doing backdoor shady deals with Russian mobsters and mafia, and Jared wanted to set up a backdoor channel in Cyprus or whatnot. Like, these guys are scumbags, and we are not certain 100% that they are working in the American interest, and we can't, like, you know,
I like to
listen,
juxtapose stories
when they
about
say that-
Russia with specifically
Listen,
suppressing voting rights.
I
I agree.
I appreciate the call. But let me just say this. I am 100% convinced they are working in their best interests, period. And I have never claimed anything other. All right. We're going to take, we'll do a couple of rounds. Go ahead, Matt.
G.
G. Oh, for Gorka, golden toad. What's Ari Melber like in real life, off screen? You know, I don't know him that well. I've known him for a long time, but it's just a guy. I say, hey, what's up, Ari? And he's like, hey, Sam, how's it going? Good.
I'm very worried about
How you doing?
Because the black people can't vote. Hello.
That's it.
That's Ari Berman.
Oh, wait, which area was he?
Ari
asking
Melber.
about?
Ari Melber.
Oh.
Ari Berman, I
confuse all
know,
of them.
is actually a great guy. And I'm not saying
Great
Ari
guy.
Melber's not. I just don't know him. But
We
Ari
all
Berman.
understood what you meant through inference, Rachel.
Go ahead, Kelly.
S.
Staten Island Mike. Am I the only one who's decided that Reagan's Donnie Jr. is a stealth reefer cake impression? Notice the character only appeared after Reagan was on his podcast. Weird. Michael.
F.
Let's see. Wait.
E.
Flint. Oh, my God. These days, I've been thinking the development of modern Chinese republic is quickly on a way towards becoming a standard bearer for how socialism can be effective in New World Order, especially with trade. I'm not saying that China is this socialist haven for all workers, as it remains a pretty fucking shitty place to live for many.
Yeah.
But the rights of their workers are receiving, coupled with wage increases and antitrust enforcement, is improving faster than ours did during the New Deal era. Their balance between centralized government authority and decentralized markets allow them to navigate the global capitalist system like no other country can. Neoliberalism brought us extreme wealth inequality and political corruption thanks to that inequality, but it gave China an opportunity to redistribute those gains to invest in an educated society that understands the need for community to thrive along with the individual. I think that China's future development will be quite interesting. I hope to write my future thesis on the matter. For now, it's clear political spending has brought about so much corruption that a growing percentage of their spending becomes wasteful after each election cycle. China doesn't have that problem because of its governmental balance, at least not to the same extent.
To be really American for a minute, I saw a story the other day that some Chinese papers are censoring Winnie the Pooh because he bears a certain resemblance to Xi.
Well, you know, you take the
Kinda
good
fun.
with the bad. I mean, Winnie the Pooh. Chris Lapaco. Great job yesterday explaining the GOP lie about how they will spend more on Medicaid compared to current levels. Our changing population and healthcare inflation means that slowing the growth of spending is an actual cut for people. On the other side of that coin, what do Republicans call it when Democrats try to slow the growth of military spending? Then it's a cut to the military. Is military-industrial inflation a real thing? Yeah, no kidding. Orange Menace. Where does most of the ACA funding come from? Taxes on high California incomes. Now the ACA will soon be gone. We have a funding system for single payer. Ooh, written a little bit too early. Crispy Taco. So what do you think the Republicans will fail at next? I think we're going to have some type of like debt ceiling disaster. Chicago Don, listening to Alex Jones' song reminded me, even though I study economics and political science at college, the best source to understand modern conservatives was Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and George Norrie. People in Chicago should look into the fight Haymarket Books is in to get up a new building. It's in my area, and it looks like it will be blocked. They could help and use it to make it a second attempt. Matt.
W.
Whoa. You got to be so cool. Hold on. No W.
E.
E. That's what I said. He's like, so cool. Go ahead. Now you got to give me a different one.
J.
Jay Chavone. Scarborough's a nothing burger, but what about his hair? Michael Brooks would dirty dance with Callista Gingrich and have the contract with America tattooed on his ass to have hair like that. I know I would. I draw the line at marrying Zbigniew Brzezinski. Pam Geller has been beating the drum for blonde woman who was shot by a cop in Minneapolis, which is confusing by alt-right standards. Geller is technically not white. But seriously, why have we not seen the criminal history and mugshot of the Australian yoga instructor who was shot by a cop? She was no angel. Anyway, since you no longer read my IMs, it's safe for me to announce my support for the movement to exterminate gypsies. No one will ever know my heartfelt desire. For some background, Tucker Carlson did a gypsy segment last night. Wow, Jay. I don't know if I can read those in the future. Kelly.
N.
Nick from Manitoba. Do you use or endorse any chest hair product? No. Great interview today. Do you think you'll ever go into detail about corporate conglomeration, vertical and horizontal integration, and the various reasons companies want to merge as opposed to stay competitive? Another note, Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Dore. There you go. Got to keep up with those Jimmy numbers. That's just a start. Don't be slacking. Lastly, did you watch that clip of Lawrence O'Donnell yelling at Glenn Greenwald? No. Liberals assume me. I am way more left than you mere liberals. I think there might be cause for radical socialist anti-fa. Somebody was mad because I was saying Antifa. Wasn't that what that guy was saying yesterday?
Antifa.
Antifa.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it that way. Because the dude was saying. Thanks for reading my M. Stay sweet, MR Beauties. The Colin Doucet. I recommend Master of None on Netflix. A great show starring Aziz Ansari. Benjamin cameoed in a few episodes. Sam, how has Milas and Saul's learning about adhering to the 5 pillars of Islam been going? Slow. Michael.
D.
D, indeed. Dostoevsky in the sheets. Trump impression idea. Trump was the 8th person in the room during the Russian meeting and is rolling over in his son and son-in-law. FBI is trying to get statements from him, but he wasn't paying attention during the meeting. Mostly talks about the food he ate. All right, final round. Matt.
R.
Reds and Ryan. Defining socialism is the quickest way to destroy political movements that materially better and empower workers. There are more Trotskyites than we can count on our fingers and toes that are going to have concern with real socialism than actual organizing. Got to have organized workers to move to communism. Without international efforts to organize labor, we won't get anywhere. Kelly.
D for disappointed in Matt right now.
Derek. In terms of successful version integration, there's a movie called Hero, written by the same guy who wrote The Wire. It's about the implementation of a successful integration program. Interesting. Michael.
C.
Collapse in Nothing Burger. Interrupt my lunch again, Mindy. Seriously, 20 years ago, there were several medical supply companies. Now it's just Cardinal, basically. Prices have not gone down. That's the promise they make when proposing mergers. The final I am of the day, 2 dope goys. Is Mindy subsidizing her health care by plugging her doctors on air? Don't let Ryan McConnell know this is an option. Donnie Jr. over here watched The President Show, and his character work is weaker than Adam Paley's. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and